Uncle Howdy isn't trying to be the Fiend, and I'm really happy about that. And honestly, I'm really happy with a lot of last night's Monday Night Raw, but there was one thing that I was really disappointed by, and I'm going to get into all of that and more. Welcome to Allison Analysis. I'm Ben Allison, and I've analysed last night's episode of Monday Night Raw, and here are my 5 key findings. In at number 5, the 8-man opening tag match was an absolute blast. I always joke that I'm not usually a fan of tag matches with over 6 people in the ring, and honestly I'm not. They usually get a bit too hectic for my liking. A lot of the in-ring psychology ends up not making sense, but the 8-man tag which kicked off last night's episode of Monday Night Raw, the Judgment Day versus the LWO, well, it was a lot of fun. It was great to see this new Judgment Day properly working together in the ring for the first time. And honestly, we don't see enough of the LWO. We really don't. I mean, the faction is so fun to watch and there's so much talent within it. And honestly, Dragon Lee is the name which stands out. We need to see a lot more Dragon Lee on WWE TV because the guy's got bucket loads of potential, yet he's not been utilized very well over the last few months. I remember when he got called up to the main roster, everyone was so excited, everyone was saying he's going to be like a main event star, and it just kind of hasn't happened at all for him. He's only 28, so there's still time, it's not like he's ruined or anything, but I really hope we do get to see more of him over the next few months. But yeah, the 8-man tag match was a really fun opening to Monday Night Raw, and it got the crowd alive, it got the crowd drawn into the show immediately, so a fantastic opening as far as I'm concerned. In at number 4, the blurred lines are what makes this CM Punk and Drew McIntyre feud so good. The best part of the McIntyre and Punk feud to me is the fact that either guy can kind of be portrayed as the babyface. Both guys could be seen as the babyface in the eyes of different people. I mean, CM Punk is loved, so in the vast majority of places outside of the UK, he is the face in all of this. But let's be real, everything that Drew McIntyre said on the mic last night, well, it's kind of accurate. And the cherry on top was that CM Punk genuinely attacked him from the back later on. And both guys have done this. Both guys have done very heelish things throughout this feud at different times. And I remember months and months ago when Drew McIntyre turned heel, I said the reason that this heel turn is so good is that, well, it's kind of realistic. Like, he doesn't just feel like he suddenly turned into a bad guy. He's still speaking truths. He could be seen as the babyface in the eyes of some people. And they kind of carried that through into this feud, which is excellent, because CM Punk is hated by some, loved by some. It's just the perfect match. I mean, this storyline is really the perfect example of long-term storytelling, and I cannot wait to see where it goes from here. In at number 3, we had a bash, we had a monster bash, and yes, it was a smash. I mean, Bronson Reed versus Braun Strowman, it was fantastic. The tsunami onto the car, it was brutal, and whatever it was, the light in the car exploding, I don't even think that was meant to happen. That was brilliant. Braun Strowman has always been at his best when the action kind of goes backstage, and that continued in this match, but for once he wasn't the one who was giving out the violence, he was the victim. He was the one who took the big spot. And of course, we all know the match ended in a no contest, and you guys know my thoughts on no contests. I don't like them, but in this case, I don't mind it at all. It means they can run it back in a couple of weeks, perhaps in a steel cage. That would make a lot of sense. Although I would hope they did like a reinforced steel cage and they didn't just do the spot, which they've done tons, where the cage breaks, because we've seen that one too many times now. But this is an excellent filler feud for Bronson Reed before Seth Rollins returns. The fact that they've managed to turn Bronson Reed into a star in only a few weeks has just been fantastic to watch. And this feud, it's certainly one I'm enjoying. In at number 2, there was only one women's match on last night's episode of Monday Night Raw. 7 minutes in 3 hours. I'm sorry, but that's an absolute disgrace. And I don't want to hear from anybody in the comments saying, well, it's because they're not drawing numbers. We've proven that as false. Rhea Ripley and Becky Lynch are literally 2 of the biggest draws in WWE. Rhea Ripley has outdrawn Cody Rhodes segments this year. And yes, neither Rhea or Becky were in action. But guess what? You need to establish stars. You need to build them. You need to give them time for them to become top stars. Because you can't just expect it to happen magically. I mean, look, a few weeks ago, nobody cared about Bronson Reed. You gave him time, you built him up, and now look, he's one of the most over stars in the company. It's really, really disappointing. Just over 10% of the show was women's wrestling, and it wasn't like there was any big segments either. It's just disgraceful. A couple of weeks ago, our very own David Sheldon, he did a deep dive into that week in women's wrestling and the time that all the major companies gave it, and I'll show that on screen now, and it's really, really bleak. There's been a decrease in the past few months, and WWE TV a couple of weeks ago, it was like just over 15%. It's disgraceful. And yes, WWE is killing it right now. It kind of feels like you can't say anything negative about them without people saying, oh, but they're killing it right now. Triple H is doing an awesome job, which he absolutely is. I'm loving the product, but that is no excuse to suddenly cut time from women's wrestling. And no, I will not shut up about it. I will say it every week if it continues, because this is not a one-off. This is now a trend, and that it's absolutely pathetic. But on a slightly more positive note, in at number 1, Uncle Howdy isn't trying to be the Fiend, and I'm really happy about that. He isn't as dominant in the ring as the Fiend was. He doesn't look as invincible, but he doesn't need to be, because he seems a lot smarter. This means that his matches can be a little more back and forth, and we saw this in the match against Gable last night. Gable got a lot more offense in than he probably would have against the Fiend. I mean, going into this match, I really was fearing he was going to be presented as the Fiend 2.0, and I was scared that fans weren't going to like that. So I was really impressed with his debut match against Chad Gable last night. I thought it was great. I thought it did what it needed to do. It didn't make Chad Gable look too weak, but it made Uncle Howdy look very smart. But the question now is, what's next for the Wyatt Six? I really hope the feud of American Made is done, purely because I think American Made has a lot of potential, and if you keep this feud going, I think it might kill them as a faction. But perhaps Drew McIntyre. That's my current thought process. Maybe Drew McIntyre after the CM Punk feud, or maybe between matches in the CM Punk feud, or something like that. Maybe we could have the Wyatt Six versus Drew McIntyre. I think that would make a lot of sense. If McIntyre does lose to CM Punk, I think he could be going through a little bit of a character crisis. And storylines like that, character storylines like that, are perfect for the Wyatts to come in, because they kind of can refresh your character a little bit, add a little bit of spice to it perhaps. And yeah, I'm excited to see what's next. But that's all for me on last night's episode of Raw. But what did you guys think? Please let me know in the comments down below. And if you guys did enjoy this video, please like and subscribe. It means a lot and it's truly appreciated. I will be back to talk a little bit of AEW Dynamite on Thursday. So I will see you guys then. Peace!